viral drug Paxlovid. In a statement, the president's physician says the president feels well enough to resume his physical exercise regimen.
Fox's Jared Halpern. Now that 5 days have passed since his diagnosis, the president would be cleared to return to the Oval Office if he tests negative. And breaking just a few minutes ago, there is no winner in Tuesday night's $830 million Mega Millions jackpot. That means Friday's jackpot will be worth at least $1,020 million. America is listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services that you want to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
President Biden will speak with China's President Xi on Thursday.
Among the expected topics in the upcoming call, whether President Biden plans to roll back China tariffs and whether Speaker Nancy Pelosi will travel to Taiwan. Florida Republican Congressman Michael Waltz told Fox's Neil Cavuto the speaker should make the trip.
We don't let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where our elected leaders visit.
Michigan Democratic Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin told Fox's America's Newsroom Pelosi should travel.
I think we need to be muscular when it comes to China, and they can't tell us where we can and cannot travel.
At the White House, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
Russia has announced it's pulling out of the International Space Station after 2024. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
We're exploring options to mitigate the potential impacts on the ISS beyond 2024 if Russia does withdraw. For our part, we remain committed to working with ISS partners to ensure the safe operation of the ISS and the astronauts who are on board.
Russia making plans to launch its own space platform, a 23-ton rocket booster that China used to boost its new space station into orbit over the weekend is falling back to Earth. NASA warns some of the pieces may be big enough to survive re-entry and hit the ground. A Florida man has an out-of-this-world excuse for allegedly stealing a pickup truck.
Corey Johnson is accused of stealing a pickup truck and driving it to Patrick Space Force Base in Brevard County. When cops arrived, they say Johnson told them he was sent there on presidential orders to warn officials about an extraterrestrial war, specifically aliens fighting Chinese dragons. Police said Johnson also said he heard President Biden in his mind tell him to steal the vehicle. He's now charged with grand theft auto. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns the property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Boss 104, The Point, and Star 101 are bringing you the Back to the 80s and 90s Throwdown at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill in Antigua, Saturday, August 6th.
Come down and get on the dance floor as I, DJ Daryl Nazama, get on the turntables, giving you the best of the 80s, 90s, and more.
Star 101, The Point, and Boss 104 will be in the house.
Yo, DJ, pump it up some more.
Plus, we have all kinds of cool stuff to give to you.
Free food giveaways,
buckets of beer,
T-shirts, and hourly cash prizes.
For the 90s Throwdown dance off.
Back to the 80s and 90s Throwdown at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill in Antigua behind Circle K Beachside. The party is from 8 p.m. to midnight, so come down and get your groove on. Special thanks to JV International Safety Equipment Company and Lolita Kamet from Hoffaday Realty.
We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. So in addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream the point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream the point.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the way we do it here on Tall Tales. Tall Tales is a conservative firearms, First Amendment, U.S. Constitution-oriented program that invites listener participation. You can call, you can put a post on our Facebook page, whatever you want to do, give it a shot. And even if you're wrong, which means you don't agree with me, I go to great lengths to protect people even when they're wrong. So let's give it a try today. First thing on the agenda every day is what's called Zemi Ikutni. Jose, I got to borrow your hard copy. Forgot to bring my print out here today for Zemi Ikutni. Fortunately, I only need one hard copy because the Post is still on strike since way back when. And the Daily News put something here. I'll show you what it looked like. The Daily News put something in the news hole here that is the place where an editorial would go, but the content oftentimes isn't really editorial comment or content. And here's what the Daily News is saying today. Senators bridge gap for struggling ratepayers again, but what will come next? In the continuing saga to distribute as much in federal relief funds as possible to Guam's struggling families, senators passed a bill that will give a $500 power rebate to the Guam Power Authority's residential and commercial customers. The $100 monthly rebate to be paid out over the next 5 months no doubt bridges the ever-widening gap for moms and dads, Manamco, and small businesses struggling to make ends meet from one payday to the next. As inflation rates continue to hurt pocketbooks and shipping delays further contribute to rising costs, we believe this direct cost saving for power rates is an equitable way to ensure that everyone, no matter their economic status, gets an equal share of the relief aid pie. More importantly, it ensures that this relief aid is being used responsibly and going directly toward a critical necessity, a lightened load on dreaded monthly bills that must be paid instead of to marijuana, alcohol, or crystal methamphetamine. Yeah, only partly in jest. While we submit that some may disagree about how relief funds should be spent, many believe cash assistance should be given directly to residents to use at their own discretion. We've also got to start being realistic about the dwindling number of pandemic-related funds available as leaders continue to introduce measures earmarking these funds for various causes. We're approaching the final days of 2022 primary election season, where voters will decide which candidates for senator, delegate, lieutenant governor, and governor will make it to the table for November's general election. Now is the time for voters to pay close attention to which of these potential leaders has the most responsible plan to move Guam forward. Plans that involve responsible spending in areas that will shore up and strengthen our tourism-beholden economy. Handing out cash is great, but more must be done to ensure that all Guam's families are capable of growing strong enough to withstand the economic obstacles that can and will come our way. We've fared better than many through this pandemic shutdown. Let's ensure we learn from these lessons and prepare wisely for the future. Okay, that's the Daily News editorial for today, such as it is. And I got to get my Facebook set up here. Here I am. Here I am, big as life, twice as ugly. We've already got Brad Wood is here. We've got Janice Wong. Janice was gone for a while. She's back again now. Good to have you back on board, Janice. We've got Oliver Malakas, Mark Anthony. That's a Shakespearean name if I ever heard one. Lonnie Salas and Mark Cruz. I think Mark S. Cruz is the guy that calls to make his mark, isn't he?
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
that's him. Okay, so we've so much for Demi Cotney. Let's see what we've got on the calendar today. We got a pretty thin calendar, but we have a special event today. When I get to Churchill Downs, I'm going to have 3 people in studio. Now, you know how rare it is to see an in-studio guest here at Tall Tales. I don't have guests just for the sake of having guests. They have to be packing some special gear to make it out of the green room and into the studio here. Well, the 3 guests I have today are packing special gear. I've got the inaugural meeting of the Blue Star Club. 3 people who do not work for newspapers, but have written editorials in one venue or another of such merit that they rated the coveted Blue Star. And today they will appear in their Blue Star livery. This will give them a good chance to tell our international radio listening audience how great Tall Tales is. Gosh, I only gave them 15 minutes. I think that'll be, probably should have given them more time if that's what they're going to be talking about. Anyhow, they got to do, we'll see what they can do. And then I'll also ask them to comment on the state of journalism on the island in general. They are the shining lights of journalism on Guam right now. So no matter what you're doing, make sure that you're around here at church when I go to Churchill Downs, because you want to catch that special feature here on Tall Tales. Here's the card for today. I've got Guam Medical Society versus babies. I've got Ken versus Governor Guerrero, which I had yesterday. Here's Ken, the early edition or the web edition of the Daily News yesterday. Today, here it is in hard copy. This is Ken's op-ed piece in the paper where he's talking about, giving us a chapter and verse about how he sent a sunshine to the governor and how she stiffed him. Now, I think this is the same governor who's always bragging about the transparency of her administration. So she stiffed Ken, and today on the card I've got Ken versus the governor at Superior Court. Ken has filed some papers at Superior Court. So we'll talk about that. I've got the governor versus Chamorros. Now that sounds kind of strange, doesn't it? Governor versus Chamorros.
Is this something that we normally would see on Monday?
It is indeed something we would ordinarily see on Monday. Yeah, in fact, maybe you might want to give us a little taste of that this afternoon, Jose,
Okay.
when we get to that item on the card, just to refresh recollections, right? Yeah. And then I've got Michigan versus Harbaugh, which I started yesterday, and then stuff that's been on the card for quite a while. I hope it's not stale, but I've got a light card today, so today's one of those days that we could relax the Tall Tales discipline a tad. So if you have one of those things that you're saying to yourself, you know, I always wanted to ask Bob about this, but I never had the chance. Today might be that day. Just make sure that you don't try to do it at Churchill Downs. Churchill Downs. We've got reserved seats for the Kentucky Derby today. Okay, naturally, I start out with Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. I think everybody understands that analogy. Every day we see new repetitions of it, though, where we know, our eyes, our senses, our ears, our noses even tell us what the real truth is, what the facts are, and we've got people peddling agendas. In fact, the first item on the card fits into that quite nicely.
The Medical Society?
Exactly.
Yes, sir, it does.
Yeah, quite nicely. So here it is. Guam Medical Society. We support a woman's right to have a choice.
Would you like fries with that, ma'am?
Is that for here or to go?
Would you like the stripes or the polka dots?
Yeah. Now, the Medical Society, of course, is doctors. And I already told you guys why I'm a lawyer and not a doctor. I'll tell you one more time. I really wanted to go to medical school, but I couldn't get past the admission requirements. My handwriting wasn't bad enough. Yeah, so the Medical Society is doctors, and they've got this thing called the Hippocratic, which is not the same thing as the hypocritic, the Hippocratic Oath.
So sometimes they cross that line.
Sometimes, if you say the wrong word, it's not a mistake. It's calling it as you see it. It's once again systemic racism. So the Hippocratic Oath is, first of all, do no harm. So the recent Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade has troubled many, including those of us on board of the Guam Medical Society. Now, there are two groups of doctors, and I can never remember which one is which, who's in what. Maybe some of our callers can help us there. There's the Guam Medical Society and the Guam Medical Association. And my memory is that 10 or 12 years ago, they got into a skirt tearing contest. There was only one group. They got into a skirt tearing contest and they had a schism, and now we have two. But this is the Guam Medical Society reversing a ruling that has led to nearly 50 years of progress. Yeah, now guess which newspaper this appeared in? The Daily News. 50 years of progress for women's reproductive rights and their ability to choose safe and legal medical care is taking a monumental step backwards. Now, this is not a quote. This is the news. You talk about, no wonder they can't write editorials. They're putting it all in the news stories. All of their editorial content goes, this is extremely editorial. The recent Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade has troubled many, including those of us on the Medical Society, Guam Medical Society. So maybe it is a quote. Reversing a ruling that has led to nearly 50 years of progress for women's reproductive rights and their ability to choose safe and legal medical care is a monumental step backwards. We, the Guam Medical Society, will always advocate for a woman's right to choose. Now, here you're seeing the classic example of systemic red rice. The narrative here, this rice is red. I don't care what you say. If you can't see that it's red, you need to go to one of our members who is an ophthalmologist, because your eyes are not working right. That rice is not orange, it's red. So they're talking about women's reproductive rights, their ability to choose safe and legal medical care. When the actual facts are, what they're talking about is killing helpless, innocent babies in utero. That's what they're really talking about. But they've camouflaged it behind all of the buzzwords that are going to appeal to the hard left of the Democrat Party. And then they go on to do some redefinition, which is, again, part of the game. You take a word that you thought you knew the meaning of, and you give it a new meaning, borrowing George Orwell's playbook in the process. War is peace, as an example. Evil is good. So here's what the medical society is telling us. Being, quote, pro-choice is not equivalent to being pro-abortion. Did you know that, Jose? Being pro-choice is not equivalent to being pro-abortion.
Well, he's not a philosophy or an English teacher.
No. Instead, it means just what it says, advocating for preserving the ability to choose.
This is, how long does it take to go through medical school? At least 7 years?
Something like that.
8
yeah.
years?
Yeah.
And this is the logic that comes out of it?
I'm sharing thoughts with you. You know, if this is the thought process, I want to know the names of the members, because I wouldn't take my dog to these people for medical
How do they
care.
treat medical opinions then?
Yeah, exactly. Instead, it means just what it says, advocating for the preserving the ability to choose, having the ability and right and legal right to make a choice regarding one's health while in private consultation with one's doctor. Now, if I could use the right vocabulary here, I would tell you exactly what they're doing. You've seen these cans of whipped cream? Yeah. You've seen a cow pie? Yeah.
Yes.
They've got this great big cow pie here, this fresh cow pie that stinks to high heaven. But rather than doing what you should do with a fresh cow pie, they go into their car and they get this can of whipped cream and they spray it all over the top of the cow pie. I said, what's wrong? It's fine. There's nothing wrong here. You can't smell it. Here's a spoon. You want to taste it? It's exactly what they're doing. And these guys, you know, they've all got bachelor's degrees. They've spent 4 years getting a bachelor's degree. They went to medical school. They've had internships, residences, God knows what else. And there was a time when they were held in extremely high regard in the community. Doctors were about as respected as anybody you could find, right? And in a sense, maybe it made their jobs more difficult, because if a doctor told you something, most people wouldn't ask the doctor for a clarification or a question, because they had so much respect for the doctors. And then they come out with BS like this. Being pro-choice is not equivalent to being pro-abortion. Instead, it means just what it says, advocating for preserving the ability to choose, having the ability and legal right to make a choice regarding one's health while in private consultation with one's doctor. Yeah.
Now, this is written by a Dr. Samir. Samir Barley, maybe.
Let me see.
And I'm going to assume he's a doctor here on Guam.
You found that in the hard copy?
It's on the online copy.
It is?
Yeah.
I can't find it.
Yeah, Dr. Samir, Ambrale.
Okay.
Being a doctor on Guam.
Yeah.
If a woman comes up to Dr. Samir and says, I would like you to perform an abortion, what would he say?
He'd say, of course.
But I don't do abortions.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then he goes, well, can you recommend a doctor on Guam who will give me this choice, especially from the Guam Medical Society? And he will say,
no.
So
there are no doctors on Guam that do abortions.
So much for providing choice.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There must be some snazzy Latin way to say, do as I say, not as I do. the opposite of leadership by example, right?
Yeah, so people of choice, don't be fooled by this doctor.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to read this beginning one more time. It is stunning. Being, quote, pro-choice is not equivalent to being pro-abortion. Instead, it means being just what it says, advocating for preserving the ability to choose, having the ability and legal right to make a choice regarding one's health while in private consultation with one's doctor. Yeah, so he will say, yeah, okay, go ahead and make your choice. Okay, well, what time will my appointment? Oh, I won't be doing your abortion. Why not, Doc? Well, I know this sounds kind of funny coming from a doctor because sterility is so important, but I don't want to get my hands dirty. Yeah, the Hippocratic Oath. With the recent introduction of Bill 291-36, known as the Guam Heartbeat Act, sponsored by Senator Talina Nelson, we in the Guam Medical Society are concerned that the legislature is overstepping its bounds.
And this is the part of the editorial where he describes how he doesn't know what he's talking about in another field.
And encroaching on the sacred. Now, putting sacred and abortion in the same sentence, he doesn't even know what the language is about.
Maybe he's an Aztec.
Could be. Putting the sacred and private relationship that exists between a patient and their physician. Well, what's his name again, Jose?
Samir let me get this name again. Dr. Samir Abrali.
I'm going to call him as Dr. Samir. Dr. Samir, let me explain the word sacred to you. If you're looking for a sacred and private relationship, find a Catholic and a priest. That is a sacred relationship. Sacred is the opposite from secular. Sacred means it has a religious grounding. A sacred and private relationship exists between Catholics and priests during the confessional. The priest is under a very heavy obligation to not disclose the contents of that confession to anyone. And because it is a sacred relationship, he has the ability to forgive the person who confesses sins. So you need to, in addition to your medical ethics, you need to brush up on the language a little bit, Dr. Samir. Now, he says there's a sacred and private relationship that exists between a patient and their physician. So he's obviously pretty woke, right? Now, if we're talking about abortion, I would say between a patient and her physician. But, of course, I'm not woke.
Well, you're never sure which pronoun they prefer.
Well, and besides that, we've had people who are pretty high up in the food chain telling us that men can become pregnant, and sometimes a man might need an abortion. We had that professor from Harvard tell us that, remember?
So I would think that part of medical training includes biology.
One would hope so.
Yeah, so is this what biology teaches?
Yeah, between a patient and their physician. Unless once again, I use this one all the time, unless he has two females that are conjoined twins, what we used to call Siamese twins, and they're both pregnant, and they come to him for advice, and then there would be appropriate, right?
And they would have to share the same uterus.
I suppose they would, yeah.
Because if it was Siamese but separate uterus, he would still have to use. So he's only talking about Siamese twins who share a uterus in this op-ed.
I think so, yeah. He goes on to say, Bill 291 proposes that, quote, a physician may not knowingly perform or induce an abortion on a pregnant woman. I guess he could do an abortion on a pregnant man. On a pregnant woman, if the physician detected a fetal heartbeat for the unborn child. So if it's a man, he doesn't have to worry about the heartbeat. But for a woman, he does. As is widely known at this point, a fetal heartbeat can be detected at 6 weeks of pregnancy, which is just 4 weeks after conception. Duration of pregnancy is typically timed from the first day of the last menstrual period. Now,
marathon conception.
Yeah.
Last 2 weeks.
This means that by the time the vast majority of women find out they are pregnant, they will no longer have the choice to complete the pregnancy or not. Well, that's not what choice means. You know, choice means just having the choice. Exercising it is something different. What is exceptionally egregious is the legislature is trying to wash their hands of actual responsibility for depriving a woman of her rights by placing the enforcement of the law exclusively through private civil actions.
He should have stopped at the last paragraph.
Yeah. Mirroring the approach of the legislature in Texas. It's beyond our comprehension. It's just too hard for them. They can't comprehend it. Why any private citizen would be allowed to sue a physician for delivering health care to a woman after private, detailed, and informed discussions have taken place. Now, once again, he should have stopped right after the word sue. It's beyond our comprehension why any private citizen would be allowed to sue a physician, period. And that's why they like this Mandatory Medical Arbitration Act so much. I see stuff like this. You know, I say, let's do away with it. Let's do away with the whole thing. And if it causes doctors to leave, I hope this guy's the first guy on the plane. Detailed and informed discussions have taken place. Now, it's the same medical profession. You know, he's talking about detailed and informed discussions. You remember Ray Dew and Kaneshiro came over and became plaintiffs in a civil suit so they could prescribe chemical abortions online, where they would never actually have to be in the same room with the patient, and they wanted to do away with this in-person consultation. Detailed and informed private discussions.
That's inconvenient facts you're stating.
Yeah, it is, yeah. That would cut into the bottom line, yeah. Over the last few years, the Guam legislature has made many unprecedented attempts to pass laws that adversely affect the already fragile health care on Guam without consulting with the medical community.
Well, by way of this op-ed, I can see why.
Yeah. In our opinion, a person's right to decide treatment options, here we go again, is sacrosanct. It's sacrosanct. Once again, calling on the divine for vocabulary.
So if somebody went to this doctor, let's say this is his field, the one example I'm going to give, and asked for him to amputate his left arm and his left foot and replace his left foot with his left arm, the decision that this person would want to have, would he do it?
Well, let me use my two examples. It's a good example, but here's my first example. Let's say that I had a tattoo here on my forearm, a great big tattoo that said, "I love Susie." Well, Susie and I never made it to the altar.
I'm sorry, but good for Auntie Lou.
Yeah. So, you know, now I'm about to marry Mary, right? And Mary says, I'm not going to marry you if you got that Susie tattoo on your arm. That won't work. You've got to get rid of it. They got one of these abrasion. No, because it's going to leave a scar there. And every time I see it, I might as well be looking at the tattoo as a scar. Well, what do you want me to do? Cut off my arm? Good idea. So I go down to the doctor and I tell him this really sad story. And I say, Doc, like about right here, about 2 inches south of the elbow, cut it off. I don't know if I could donate this to somebody else, but I got to do this so I can get married. Would he do it? I don't think so. Yeah. Let's take a short break and we'll come back to my second example.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so here we are. I just thought of another example, Jose. I'm going to tell you about the one that I just thought of first. Let's say I'm an artist, and the artist that I just worship is Vincent van Gogh.
I can see where you're going.
So I go to the doctor and I say, Doc, I'm trying to become a famous artist, and I'm trying to get into the Vincent van Gogh school of painting. I really like the way he treats his, a lot of people would say red, but it's actually orange, his oranges and his colors and everything. But I don't think I can really get into the Van Gogh mood unless I imitate Van Gogh's lifestyle. So, Doc, I want you to cut off my ear. Would he do it?
I don't think so.
No, he'd say, well, you'd have to go to an otolaryngologist for that.
But there are examples of what you're talking about, especially in the plastic surgery field. Some people come to doctors with these extreme kind of decisions to mutilate their bodies.
Yeah.
And even plastic surgeons have some sort of ethics on what they will and will not do and what they're able to do as well.
Exactly. Okay, third example. This deals with little Johnny. Little Johnny is 8. And I've made the mistake of taking little Johnny out to Pirates Cove for lunch sometimes. And he thinks Jeff Pleadwell is just the coolest guy that ever walked. And because of Jeff, he's gotten really interested in pirates. So, half the time around the house, no matter what I say to him, about the most I could ever get back out of him is him saying, "Arr." So he has been begging and pleading with me, Dad, I want to be a pirate. Take me down to the doctor and have him cut off my left leg below the knee so I can wear a peg leg, and I want him to take out my right eye because I need an eye patch. And I take it down. Kids will be kids, so I take him down to the doctor and I lay this out on the doctor. Isn't that the child's choice? I mean, if he said he wanted to be a girl, there'd be lots of doctors that would, do that whole routine for him. But to say that a person's right to decide treatment options is sacrosanct and cannot be abrogated. It's misuse of the English vocabulary, again, and I just don't think it's correct. In Oregon, we found out yesterday in Oregon, they have assisted suicide. Yeah. So if I went to a doctor and I said, doctor, I've had 83 good years. I've had enough. I'm tired. I want to move on and make room for somebody else. Can you give me something that, I can pop in my mouth and I'll be laying in my coffin when I do it, and that'll be the end of it. That's the treatment I really prefer. Would the doctor do it? It's my choice, right?
Well, I think that's what comes down to this type of op-ed, is that as long as you don't mention what that choice is,
exactly,
his hands are clean.
Yeah, yeah. So now, if I were to approach anyone and say, I have this desire, I've been watching too many horror movies and some of the crap that's on TV and some of the streaming services, so I want to be a killer. I've read about John Wayne Gacy and Jack the Ripper and some of these. So I want to be a serial killer. But, there have been so many I want to be different. The only people I want to kill are helpless, innocent babies in utero. Yeah, that's what I want to do. That's my choice. Doctor, can you help me with that? Would that be okay? Well, that's not what choice means. It doesn't mean killing helpless, innocent humans. That's not what we mean when we use the word choice. If you read this editorial at all, that's not what we mean. We're the medical society, and if you can't read this and understand this, why do you have a talk show there, Bob?
Being pro-choice is not equivalent to being pro-abortion.
Exactly.
Systemic racism.
Exactly. He goes on to say, again, we are against this bill not because we are pro-abortion. Oh, perish the thought. But because we believe that a pregnant woman should always have a choice. A choice between continuing the pregnancy or terminating it. Terminating a pregnancy is not the same thing as killing a helpless, innocent human. It's not the same thing at all. It's different because... Wait a minute. It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. We're back to the cow pie and the whipped cream again. A woman should have the choice of having a medical procedure done under safe conditions and performed by a medical professional rather than seeking out a potentially life-threatening and illegal method of termination, if termination is her choice. Can you see the coat hanger there floating in the air over the text, Jose? Yeah. That is not, you talk about a choice. That is not a choice. That's propaganda, Doc. Guam's medical environment is limited by many things that are out of our control, namely its territorial status. Now, how does that put anything out of your control, Doctor? The fact that Guam is a territory. Geography, population, yeah. Territorial status, no. It should not be limited by laws that infringe on a woman's personal right to choose what is done with or to her body. But of course, this sliding over this, of course, this is mandatory for the pro-aborters, Jose. They have to talk about her body. They can't talk about the other body, the one that they're killing. She has to have a choice about what to do with her body, but in order for her to have that choice about what to do with her body, she also has to have that choice about what to do with another completely separate body from her own. It's called the baby. But we don't want to talk about that. Guam Medical Society is firmly against Bill 291-36. We support a woman's right to have a choice. What a bunch of garbage.
You know what? There is an organization called the Guam Coalition for Life.
Mhm.
And I can guarantee that they also support a woman's ability to make a choice, as long as that choice does not include killing an unborn human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's choice. That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, it's just amazing. Reproductive freedom. And reproductive freedom means having the freedom not to reproduce by killing what your body has been designed for, to reproduce.
So this just highlights one of the factors of why of the question of what is going on with society these days, and it absolutely has to do with a self-centered, selfish, I don't have to look at the bigger picture as long as it makes me feel good society.
Exactly. Yeah. The word selfish is a good word, but I don't think it's really quite inclusive enough. Extremely selfish, super selfish, very, very selfish, sin selfish, Chamorro. Yeah, it's just amazing. And then because of this, people can come up with this rap like this doctor here and not be embarrassed by it. It's just it is truly amazing what our society has come to. And if you turn the clock back 49 years ago, before Roe versus Wade, people had abortions. And there was an abortionist right here on Guam, Dr. Darling, according to the rumors, down right next to, what's the name of that place? Linda's. Yeah, that was the rumor, But it wasn't the kind of thing that anybody talked about in public, because it was something that people were ashamed of. Whether or not you ever had one, you didn't want to talk about it because it was not a polite subject to talk about. It was not a nice thing. It's kind of like some of the stuff I was talking about, being a serial killer and stuff like that. I don't know what the statistics were, but abortion was not a commonplace occurrence back in those days. And I just read the other day that 1 out of 4 or 5 pregnancies ends in an abortion nowadays. So Roe versus Wade started something that was never there before, as far as I could tell. Now, of course, who really took it in the pocketbook when Roe passed? Shotgun manufacturers. Yeah.
Let's take a break and let them mull over that one.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a hint. Father's talking to a couple of the boys down in the corner bar, and one of the fathers says the other one, he says, "Whatever happened to your daughter? Did she get married?" "Yeah, she got married." "Oh, I don't remember getting the wedding invitation." "Well, we didn't send any out. She got married at the end of a long white shotgun."
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Project Inspire and the Guam Dance Community presents
Made to Move,
a community dance event. Sunday, July 31st at the Hagåtña Shopping Center. Pull up in your dancing shoes because we're dedicating this entire day to dance. This full-day event will have fun community dance workshops, a grand premiere of the film, and an all-out after-party. A portion of the proceeds will benefit Guam Cancer Care. Tickets are now available at www.projectinspire.co. And follow us on the gram at Project Inspire for updates on the event.
Made to Move.
Okay, so I guess as far as what's his name again, Jose?
Dr. Samir.
Dr. Samir.
Dr.
Yeah.
Samir.
Yeah, as far as Dr. Samir's inaugural here on Tall Tales, I think we could probably say it was stillborn. Okay, next we've got Ken versus the governor. And yesterday we had this on the card. You know, the Daily News online edition puts a lot of the stuff that comes out in the hard copy on the night before the hard copy comes out, and that's the ones that I usually put on the show here. And the story was, letter requesting information to verify claims is my right as a citizen. This was Ken's op-ed piece in the Daily News, and he goes through chapter and verse about how the governor said, we've got all the plans done for the hospital, et cetera. It's rare. It's all set to go. And Ken sent a sunshine law request. Send me all these public records I want to see. And she didn't even write back and say, I'm not going to do it, or anything at all. She didn't say hello, goodbye, or yeah, whatever.
The term is she ghosted him.
Yeah, she ghosted. She disappeared. So Ken is certainly what I would call a governmental gadfly. You know, if you're in government, he's one guy you don't want to have angry at you, because he will pursue you until you really get tired of having him pursue you. So what Ken did, Ken filed a lawsuit against the governor. He did it pro se, and the caption of the case is Joaquin V. Leon Guerrero versus Lourdes Leon Guerrero. And I'll just read a little bit of it. It is pro se, and I'm not going to be critical. There's some things that Ken doesn't know because he's not a lawyer that, you know, aren't exactly correct here on his papers. But if you read the rules of civil procedure, the judges are supposed to not bend the rules for pro se plaintiffs, but they're supposed to give them as much latitude as the law would allow. So Ken's paper is entitled Memorandum of Law in Support of Petition for an Order to Show Cause or Alternative Writ of Mandate. Well, it's not a memorandum of law. If it's anything, it's a petition for a writ of mandate. And he says it's a petition for an alternative writ of mandate. Well, the way an alternative writ of there are two different kinds of mandates. There's the alternative writ and the peremptory writ. And if it's an alternative writ, you've got your papers filled out, you've got an order ready, you take it before a judge ex parte, you notify the other side, and the other side shows up. And if the judge concludes that you've exhausted your administrative remedy and that your papers are well taken, he signs the alternative writ and sets down a date for an order to show cause. And at the order to show cause, the other party comes in, the respondent comes in and makes his argument, the petitioner makes his argument, and if the petitioner prevails, it then becomes a peremptory writ of mandate. If he doesn't, the petitioner doesn't, then the matter goes away. If it's a peremptory writ of mandate, you start out with a petition and you pray for a peremptory writ of mandate. You don't get that signed by the judge order to show cause mechanism. The alternative is used quite often, and the newspapers always get it wrong because it comes out and it said, and it will say something like this: you are ordered to comply with to provide the following to Ken Leon Guerrero, or appear in court on the 12th of Never and show cause why you should not be held in contempt. Newspaper, court orders, governor, and that's not what it means at all, because nothing is. That's just the language of the order, and until the court hears it, the order is not what it appears to be. But I think the court will probably overlook some of these niceties and give Kent some relief. So then he lays out the jurisdiction of the court, the parties. He has his factual allegations. On July 14, petitioner made a request for production of certain documents from the office of the governor. Now, this is one I harp on all the time. You don't make a request for papers.
Demand.
Well, you demand, and not from an office or a department, from a person, because you can't hold an office in contempt of court. And that's why I keep criticizing the papers for this office of the governor and office of the attorney general, etc. However, once again, I suspect that the court might give Ken a pass on this. The request was made pursuant to the Sunshine Act. The records and documents are public in nature. Copies of GMH plan for the new hospital and all Army Corps of Engineers charrette documents, including GMH plan final report, public notices of public planning meetings, the formal request of the Army Corps to begin the process, expenditure documentation, and expenses incurred to date on the planning meetings, charrette, emails, et cetera, and therefore properly disclosable and not otherwise protected. So he lists this long list of stuff. Now, the Sunshine Law says that there are 3 different timelines in the Sunshine Law. The first timeline is this. A citizen can go into a government office and demand to see public records now, this minute. And the Sunshine Law says that government officials are supposed to keep their records in such a manner that they can meet these requests. Now, I've done that, but in order to make it easier on myself and on the government official, I'll usually give them a couple days' notice. And I'll say, let's say today is the 27th, I would send a notice and say at 1400 hours on the 29th of July, I will come to your office to inspect the following public records. Now, I could just go in, I could just drop in off the street and say the same thing. Chances are I'd have to come back, so on. Okay, let's break for the big halftime show, and we'll come back to Ken versus the governor here.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Nope, you didn't win the big one. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. In fact, nobody can claim the $830 million Mega Millions jackpot because none of the millions of tickets sold matched the winning numbers drawn last night. That's 29 consecutive drawings without a winner. The jackpot for Friday's drawing will be worth at least $1,020 million, the second largest ever. Federal grand jury in Washington has reportedly begun asking witnesses about what former President Trump or members of his inner circle were saying on January 6th last year when protesters rushed the U.S. Capitol. The Washington Post reports it's part of a criminal investigation into attempts to block the certification of the Electoral College results. The former president was back in Washington Tuesday for the first time since leaving the White House, telling a meeting of the America First Institute the last election was a disgrace and calling for election reform, including limits on mail-in voting.
Same-day voting with only paper ballots. That's it. The military, if it's based far away only, can vote, and people that are legitimately ill can vote by mail-in. but that's a very small category.
2 GOP senators are demanding an investigation into the FBI's handling of derogatory information about Hunter Biden prior to the election.
2 Republican senators, they blame the DOJ, including the FBI, for burying potentially negative information on Hunter Biden by calling it disinformation. Both senators want a DOJ Inspector General investigation on the matter after claims of multiple whistleblowers coming forward that shared information that there was a plan to suppress any and all negative information about Hunter Biden.
Fox's David Spunt reports Iowa's Senator Chuck Grassley says the credibility of the FBI is at stake. A 7.0 magnitude earthquake has struck the northern Philippines, some damage reported. America is listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services that you want to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
We're getting a closer look at Monday's airport shooting in Dallas.
Police released video Tuesday of a woman firing several gunshots inside Dallas Love Field Airport. The suspect, a 37-year-old woman, gets out of an Uber, enters the terminal, changes in the bathroom, then comes out and fires rounds at the ceiling, then pointed her gun at an officer. Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia says an officer gave the woman verbal commands to drop her weapon, then shot her in the leg. That woman faces charges of aggravated assault of a public servant.
Fox's Matt Finn reports the accused shooter has a lengthy criminal record and had previously told police she was God's prophet. Another heat wave scorching parts of the country, excessive heat warnings posted for parts of the Pacific Northwest. Kirby Cook at the National Weather Service in Seattle.
A lot of folks don't have air conditioning, and we're not quite equipped to deal with the heat as other locations are in the country. So that makes it a little tougher to deal with.
Portland, Oregon forecast to be at or near 100 degrees every day through Saturday. Eastern Oklahoma also under an excessive heat warning today, where forecasters say it could reach 107. Medical marijuana sales to begin in another state today.
South Dakota's first state-licensed medical marijuana facility outside Sioux Falls. The first of more to come is opening today as pot sales begin in South Dakota for patients enrolled in the state's program after voters overwhelmingly approved medical marijuana in 2020. Medical marijuana has only been available in South Dakota on tribal land, and as voters prepare for a redo in South Dakota as an initiative to legalize recreational pot is also set to appear on the ballot this November. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
The last 2 former Minneapolis police officers convicted of depriving George Floyd of his civil rights during a fatal encounter with police will be sentenced today in federal court in Minneapolis. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
4 years ago, we expressed our belief that a strong economy depends on a strong middle class, that small businesses need help to survive in tough times, and new industries are needed to diversify our economic base. The pandemic proved us right in so many ways.
We said we would support tax cuts for small businesses, and we did. We said we would streamline government services to create a more business-friendly environment, and we are. We said we would invest in infrastructure improvements, and we have. We said we would expand opportunities for our people to learn much-needed trades, and we delivered.
Let's continue this progress. We are all in this together, and we humbly ask for your vote.
This is Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, and I approve this message.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns the property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has the management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, so here we are back on Tall Tales after another great halftime show that we all love so much. And I'm working on Ken's papers that he filed at Superior Court, which he denominates a memorandum of law in support of petition for order to show cause or alternative writ of mandate. And he is a layperson. There are things that in his papers here that aren't the way you do it. As I mentioned earlier, the constructional preference is that a judge should give a pro se defendant as much slack as the law would allow. Next thing Ken does, he puts a memorandum of law in what has to be his petition. A memorandum of law would be on a separate in a separate document, but it's kind of a small potatoes type thing. And then in his prayer, he asks that the court should issue an order to show cause, a writ of mandate, and award petitioner Ken Leon Guerrero court costs and expenses. And then for some reason, he has subscribed and sworn to it, although there would be no reason that this would have to be a verified complaint. Sometimes lawyers will do that because the complaint then could be one of the papers in a motion for summary judgment, but it's a little bit different. Now, in his prayer, he doesn't ask that the governor be fined $1,000. And, of course, that's where the real sting in the Sunshine Law comes in, because the statute says that if there's a willful violation of the Sunshine Law, the government official, not the government office, but the government official that violated the law has to pony up $1,000 of his own money out of his own pocket. And it's happened. I think there have been 3 directors now that have had to pony up $1,000. And that's the teeth in this whole thing, that, a government director can say, well, I don't like Klitzkie, and he's always sending these damn Sunshine Law matters over here, and they're a pain in the ass, and he's just doing it. He's just doing it so he can talk about it on his radio. I'm not going to do it. Well, fine. You don't do it, it could cost you $1,000. See how you like that one?
Where does the $1,000 go to?
It goes to the Ethics Commission of all places.
That's a conundrum.
It is. It really is. Yeah. And of course, in a case like this, the the prevailing party is awarded costs, which is the norm in a civil case, but the prevailing party is also entitled to attorney's fees if he has an attorney. Now, if an attorney is representing himself and he prevails, no attorney's fees. You got to hire an attorney in order to get one, and an incentive to hire an attorney to do that. But Ken prays for an order to show cause and a writ of mandate. Now, I can anticipate this, that the government, of course, will move to dismiss, and they'll fly spec the Ken's papers here, and they'll find every possible error. They'll move to dismiss. They'll point out that a writ of mandate issues when a government official, not an office, but a government official, has a ministerial duty to do something, and he has failed to do that ministerial duty. Now, if the duty, if you're asking for a discretionary act, then the writ of mandate won't lie. So it may very well be that the writ of mandate could compel the governor to respond to Ken's petition, but not necessarily compel her to issue the documents that Ken has asked for. I don't know. I'd have to sit down and think about that, because there may be some of those documents that she doesn't have to disclose. There are discretionary measures. The one that everybody erroneously calls personnel matters. I think it's section 80. I can't remember the number. Anyhow, so that'll be the next thing that happens. Ken has to get this served on the governor and the attorney general, and the governor then has 60 days. Yeah, the regular party has 20 days to respond. The governor has 60 days, and that's the benefit of going with the alternative writ of mandate, because you can really shorten that time frame down with an alternative writ of mandate. So the governor has 60 days to answer or otherwise defend. And of course, the governor will otherwise defend, and there will be, probably 20 pages of motion to dismiss here. So, evaluation. I'm glad that Ken stays on this. One of my posters here says that, where is that? Yeah, Ken needs to understand and comply with the rules, or he doesn't do the rest of us any favors. Well, there's something to be said for that, because if Ken is dismissed, if he's kicked out of court, it would tend to discourage others to bring suits on the whole Sunshine Law matter. On the other hand, if Ken sues, it does send a message that he's just not going to roll over and play dead here, because the governor's playing hide the ball. Now, there was a time back in the 70s when institutions called law clinics were very popular nationwide. And a law clinic was a different way for lawyers to render services. Law clinics, you come in and you talk to a lawyer, and he'd say, well, you need to do this. So I've got a form here that you could use. So work on this form, and I'll help you finish it up, and I'll go through and proofread it, and I'll help you with the obvious mistakes. Instead of the lawyer sitting down, the client starting out with once upon a time, and the lawyer listening to it all, and starting out basically from scratch. Of course, billing for all his time. So the law clinic method was designed to help people who are relatively intelligent cut costs and file suits that might not get filed if it weren't for these law clinics. When Herman Skipper set up his shop in Didido, the late Herman Skipper, may he rest in peace, he called it the Didido Law Clinic. And I think he started out with that idea in mind. But it sounds a lot better than it actually works, because the law is one of those kinds of things where either you understand it or you don't. And the parts that you don't understand, it's not like, say, working on the engine of a car. Actually, that's not a good example either. It's not like working on the engine of a car the way it was before cars became computerized devices. When you worked on a car, maybe you didn't know anything at all about carburetors, but you did know how a distributor worked. So you fix the distributor, something's wrong with the carburetor, you take it out, you take it to somebody, fixes the carburetor, and away you go. You didn't have to know everything about the car engine in order to fix a minor problem. The law really isn't that way. You kind of have to have a really broad-based knowledge to pick something up and run with it, like a complaint like the one that Ken is trying to file. So it would be really nice if someone would have the time in the wherewithal to set up this law clinic approach so that we could get more litigation on these attempts to stiff people that file sunshine law requests, because it happens all the time. And of course, the mismatch is tremendous. When I filed a suit against Michael Bora, who was the director of land management at the time we were really fighting over the certificate of title for the real property where the Redemptus Mater Seminary used to be. I had to come up with $10,000 out of my own pocket. I paid the lawyers $10,000. I prevailed, so the $10,000 was reimbursed to me, but I still had to have $10,000 to start with. Michael Bora, of course, had an attorney from the Attorney General's office. He didn't have to spend a penny. He didn't have to worry about it. He didn't, it was just something that somebody else handled. Right up until the time he lost, and it cost him $1,000. And that's why Ken needs to, when he'll get a chance to file a first amended complaint when this one's dismissed. He wants to make sure he pays for that $1,000, because that's the real sting in this whole process.
Okay, so that what you just said has me curious. So they can hire counsel from the AG's office to represent them.
Yep.
But the fine comes out of their own pocket.
Yes.
Oh, I don't understand how the AG's office can represent them and the fine comes out of their personal pocket.
Well, because that's what the statute says.
Oh, just because of the statute.
Yeah, and this paying out of your own pocket is a real rarity.
Yeah.
That is not the norm anywhere else.
It doesn't come from the agency's pocket.
No, but the attorney's fees and the court costs come out of that all came out of land management's budget. Yeah.
Oh, so as a citizen, we should be demanding
exactly
that our government officials adhere to the Sunshine Act so that we don't pay for it.
That's what it amounts to. If tax money goes to went to pay my attorney's fees and my costs.
See, this is the definition of woke that we need.
Exactly. Exactly. So I want to see more of this. And if there are any public-spirited lawyers out there, maybe we could set something up. Now, there's another dimension to this, and that is Ken's questions are very well-taken questions. They're the kind of thing that I want to know myself. And they're the kind of questions that you would think that everybody on this island would want to know, because this whole hospital thing is one of our most serious problems. Our hospital's a dump. We need a new hospital. And the governor has made so much noise about a hospital that everybody's heard about it. Everybody knows where she wants to put it, how much money she wants to, all of this stuff. And she's been bragging about it. Now, of course, she wants to be reelected. How better to be reelected than to promise the people a new hospital and go into this, we've done the Chared, We've had the Army, oh boy, she's really moving on that. That's great. Well, if you're going to do that, then you got to come out with your proofs. So it's the kind of thing everybody wants to know about. But here's the real question. What's the name of this piece of paper here? The Pacific Daily News? Why aren't they on this? Why does Ken have to do it? Why aren't the newspapers and the TV stations out there sticking microphones in the governor's face every day, calling Crystal Paco San Augustine, saying, where are these papers, etc.? Where's their curiosity? Where's their reporter's zeal? Where is their desire to get the scoop? Nothing. Nothing at all. And I suspect they probably will do a horrible job of covering Ken's lawsuit, not understanding that Ken shouldn't have to do this. Ken should be able to pick up a newspaper and read about it, just like you and I should be able to pick up a newspaper and read about it. So this is one of my ordinary criticisms here. None of the four, since the Post went downhill. The Post had it for a while, but the Post lost its mojo. There aren't any reporters out there that really go out and dig for a story, that will not take no for an answer and won't be blown off by an answer that doesn't make any sense at all, like my Talina Nelson story. Should I tell my Talina Nelson story again? I think I will. Talina Nelson gets an article, gets some coverage on Pacific News Center. And Talina says, these programmatic agreements that we enter into with the Department of Defense must be signed by our governor or they are not in effect. They've got to be signed by the governor. I know that because there's a 1982 Superior Court case that says that. Well, I hear that. What happens? I send an email, please send me that case. Okay. I say, please send me that case. I get a polite response. We got your email, but no case. So I give it a couple days and I send the Sunshine over there. The Sunshine comes back and said, we don't have it. We don't have it. We don't have that case. Well, you don't have the case, but this is what the story was about? So I send another FOIA and I say, send me all the public records that show that you just didn't make this up to get some cheap earned media. What does she send back? The digital copy of the Organic Act of Guam. I send this to a guy named Chargaloff, who is the reporter over at PNC who did this. And I said, when in the beginning, I called him up and I said, hey, look what happened here. Don't you guys want to run a story? Well, let me check. Then he comes back and says, if you want to come over here and record something, you can, but they don't want to cover it. Yeah. So she, and the story was her asking about an attorney general's opinion on this, right? On this 1982 case. So when the attorney general's opinion came out, he said, no, you haven't got anything. It's nothing. So I sent that over to Chargaloff and I said, how different would your story have come out if you had done what I had done? Ask for that decision. Nothing, But how could a reporter be told that there is a decision and not ask for the decision? And then why would it not be news when a public official sends a digital copy of the Organic Act, because she never had the opinion? It's just amazing.
You know what? Maybe we should call those type of moves or non-moves a herky. It's a basic move of a cheerleader.
A basic
move of a cheerleader.
A herky.
A herky. Where they just jump up in the air. And that's it.
And they just jump up.
They just jump up and raise their hands because it doesn't seem like they're reporting anything. They're just cheerleading.
Exactly. Yeah. And in my example, Crystal Paco San Augustine this morning announced that a new industry was being planned for Guam Guam will enter the space race, send spaceships to the moon, and harvest green cheese, which they will bring back to the island, package, and sell it to the tourists, bringing in millions of dollars of new dollars into the economy. Did anybody ask about the green? No, we just did this. We just covered the story. Yeah.
Herky.
Yeah, exactly.
There's another term that came out as a song a couple years ago. The older kids would know this.
Yeah.
A singer named Gwen Stefani has a song called Holler Back Girl. And it talks about that she's not one of those cheerleaders that if somebody calls something out, she's just going to repeat the same thing that they called out. And that's what these media people are doing. They're just hollering back the same thing being given to them, i.e. a press release or a statement without any citations or facts or documentation.
Let's have a big cheer for Governor Leon Guerrero. Yeah. Okay, so that's the life and times of Ken Leon Guerrero. Next item on the card is Hope Cristobal, recognized for the Maga Haga Award. And I put this on the card as the governor versus Chamorros. And I'm going to read some of this, and then we're going to show you a little bit of a video so you can kind of visualize the kind of person that the governor is recognizing. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got a couple of phone calls here. Thanks, Jose. Yeah, let's see who I got here. Come on. There we go. I'm a little trouble with my board here. I got R. Keith, and then I've got Ken L.G. So let's start out with R. Keith, and then we'll go to Ken L.G., the author of that complaint. Good afternoon, R. Keith.
Good afternoon. I will be brief, as I try always to be, because Ken Leon Guerrero typically is far more eloquent. I tend to be straight to the point.
Okay.
One of my favorite subjects is media bashing, and I got to tell you, there's plenty to bash. At what point, the two Guam laughably called newspapers really are no different than the New York Times or the Washington Post or any of, pick your major city paper or major city media on the mainland. At what point do we just start calling them TASS?
Calf?
TASS.
Like
TASS from the old Soviet Union. It was their broadcasting service run by the Soviet government.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of maybe Pravda, but Pravda means truth. Even with all of the bad connotations that word has, it probably shouldn't be used for them.
I reserve, actually, that's what NPR stands for. It's New Pravda Radio.
Mm.
But the other thing, both newspapers really aren't worth reading anymore. When the fast food places and all give me a free paper with my meal, I was like, no, that's all right. I've got enough to line the cat box sets. I don't need any more. And I know this is where you're going next, or have perhaps already discussed, but I hear that the Red Queen has just given an award to Hope Cristobal for all her services. Would that be what?
On the card right now, Ken, as soon as I'm finished with talking with you and Ken, the next item on the card is called The Governor versus Chamorros.
Yeah, I'll let you go. What I want to say probably shouldn't be said over the air, but one racist complimenting another. They're all attending the same clan meeting.
Yeah, well,
have a good afternoon.
The way I look at it, and I'll get into this when I get that item on the card, is that, when you give an award to somebody, you usually think it's the best of the bunch, right? And Hope is being given an award because she is a tomorrow's tomorrow. Well, if tomorrow, if hope is the best of the bunch, man, I'd sure as heck hate to see the second stringers.
Well, perhaps it's she is the best of the bunch, but we're just not identifying what it is that she's best at, and perhaps that's something that we can't say over the air.
Good enough, Keith. Thanks for calling. Good talking to you.
Care.
Okay, we got to go to Wrigley Field for the seventh inning stretch, and then we'll talk to Ken for a while, and then about 5:45, we're going to head for Churchill Downs, and then we'll get into the Blue Star Club.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Boss 104, The Point, and Star 101 are bringing you the Back to the 80s and 90s Throwdown at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill in Antigua, Saturday, August 6th.
Come down and get on the dance floor as I, DJ Daryl Nazama, get on the turntables, giving you the best of the 80s, 90s, and more.
Star 101, The Point, and Boss 104 will be in the house.
Yo, DJ, pump it up some more.
Plus, we have all kinds of cool stuff to give to you.
Free food giveaways,
buckets of beer,
t-shirts, and hourly cash prizes.
For the 90s Throwdown dance off.
Back to the 80s and 90s Throwdown at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill in Antigua behind Circle K Beachside. The party is from 8 p.m. to midnight, so come down and get your groove on. Special thanks to JV International Safety Equipment Company and Lolita Kamet from Hafaday Realty.
So there we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago, and who do I see out in the center field bleachers in Wrigley Field? None other than Ken Leon Guerrero with a laptop, probably tapping out a complaint, probably to sue the governor. Is that correct, Ken?
Been there, done that. Yeah. Yeah, I just got out of a meeting with some people on the initiative stuff, and I caught the last couple of minutes before you went into talking a dissertation on Guam Memorial Hospital, which was the whole reason I started this thing. You know, we're looking at $300 million that was set aside for this project that could have been and should have been used for projects that would have made our quality of life better now, not 10 years from now. And based on how capital projects go here on Guam, 10 years is very optimistic. You know, we could have been using that to do things like if we had built a mass transit system for $10 million, look at all the pain that we could have spared people of Guam during the early stages of the pandemic when nobody had a job and we didn't have PUA, but the government was sitting on $500 million. You know, there are a lot of things that could have been done. This $300 million is just another example. And for her to come out after, I don't know if you recall when the Army Corps was here, there was practically a press release every day about the Corps this, the Corps that, Corps this, Corps that. And then in a news conference, the Corps talked about the process. It was going to take 2 to 3 years, the cost, $2 to $3 million. And at the end of the 2 years of public input and meetings with stakeholders and concerned individuals, they would be presenting a plan to the public for a final approval. And yet the governor, in her response to the State of the Congress address, announced very broadly that Mike was lying, The meetings have already been done. We already have a plan. You know, that just, I wanted to see what took place between November 2021 and June 2022 that compressed everything that the Corps said would have to happen and the cost into a 4.5, 5 months time frame. That was the purpose there. Now, DOA responded within the timeline. Guam Memorial responded with the timeline. The only one that didn't respond was the governor's office. Even after I called them and let them know they had it, talked to one of the assistants, reminded them of the FOIA, the laws, and the return request acknowledgement, receipt request acknowledgement. And they said, someone will get back to you. You know, that never happened. So that's why, you know, I pursued this because, you know, I did the same thing with the CCU. I filed a FOIA. They sat on it, didn't do anything on it, and it cost Joey Duenas $1,000. So I'm just trying to help train our politicians to be more responsive to the laws that were set up to allow us as citizens to be better managers of the people we hire with our vote.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Ken.
And I've noticed since you had your success and I had my success that for the last 2 years, 3 years, every FOIA that I've submitted has been responded to promptly. They've worked with me very, very diligently. They presented options. They've let me know when there was cost involved, and they even offered, you know, in order for us to do this, we're going to have to charge you $1 a page. There's 900 pages here, or you can come in and we'll have the files in the conference room. You know, that's happened several times. But that's all since you had your FOIA victory and I had my FOIA victory. Before you had your victory and I had my victory, you know, I'd issue FOIAs and they basically would tell me, go piss up a rope. You know?
Exactly.
So it wasn't until we as citizens started pursuing and using the tools that we have that we start to see that change of attitude among those in the government. That's why I created the initiatives the way I did and why we're working on them now, and we're having meetings. We're getting ready to launch the signature drive. I'm appealing the Guam Election Commission's rejection of part-time legislature and Corrupt Practices Act. I think I will prevail because when I read the Organic Act and I read the languaging in the Organic Act and the Guam laws, my initiative doesn't violate it, you know. So, but in the meantime, these initiatives are versions of the Sunshine Act. These are tools that we as citizens can use to do a better job holding policymakers and administrators and managers accountable for their actions. Because when they screw up, we're the ones that pay for it. I mean, I think what the Port 7, we're up to somewhere around $5 to $7 million now in out-of-court settlements due to mistakes and violations of law and procedure by management personnel. And that's just one case.
Well, I think you're perhaps tossing a softball yourself there, Ken. Yeah, I don't think that it's costing us that much money, but because management made mistakes. I think management knew exactly what they were doing. You know.
Well, management knew exactly what they were doing, but it still cost taxpayers millions of dollars.
What I'm saying is this, that, you know, when cases are before a tribunal or a court, the ordinary way to resolve those matters is to let the process run to its conclusion. And you'll recall the new management at the port didn't do that. They had a better idea.
Yeah.
Had those cases run to their conclusion, it might not have cost us anywhere near as much as it did. Kind of like YTK. You remember the new management at the port wanted to settle YTK.
Yeah, I remember. The new management, 2 generations of new management wanted to settle it. And each time the settlement numbers got bigger and bigger. I think the last out-of-court settlement offer was like $8 million. It was the same thing with Guam Resource Recovery Partners. You know, they are stomping the streets, beating the drums, and getting all the politicians lined up to settle out of court with them on a lawsuit that doesn't exist for a contract that doesn't exist, but they're telling politicians who are agreeing with it, oddly enough, that if we give them $20 million, they'll make this lawsuit go away. That's the same thing we were dealing with Guam YTK. So the tools we have, and Sunshine Act is so critical. The Sunshine Act is the act that helped me stop GRRP for 15 years because I had all the documentation that I could disprove every argument that they were making as to why the taxpayers of Guam should give them $130 million. You know, the Freedom of Information Act or the Sunshine Act documents I am requesting from the governor are documents that I can use to help build a compelling reason why that $300 million should be used for its intended purposes, which is to make the quality of life better here on Guam and, you know, help ease the situation we find ourselves in as a result of how this pandemic has been handled. But unless I get those documents, the governor is going to continue to stump around and claim that, you know, she's going to build a hospital and sit on those funds.
I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, Ken. So keep up the good work, okay?
I will.
And
if anybody listening has interest in this, Jeff's Pirates Cove, Saturday from 10 to noon. We're going to be discussing the voter initiative process, walking through the different initiatives, how they are going to make our power as citizens stronger and make the government more responsive to our demands, and how we can get these laws passed.
Jeff's Pirates Cove, 10 until noon, Saturday. There's only one thing I got to say about that, Ken.
What?
Arr. Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Project Inspire and the Guam Dance Community presents
Made to Move,
a community dance event. Sunday, July 31st at the Agania Shopping Center. Pull up in your dancing shoes because we're dedicating this entire day to dance. This full-day event will have fun community dance workshops, a grand premiere of the film, and an all-out after-party. A portion of the proceeds will benefit Guam Cancer Care. Tickets are now available at www.projectinspire.co. And follow us on the gram at Project Inspire for updates on the event.
Made to Move.
Anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So here we are in Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, and I have a special event for you today here. I have the inaugural members of the Blue Star Club sitting right here with me in the studio. So, Jose, let's give these guys a little camera time here so we can see what we've got. In the middle, we have none other than, who else? Helen Middlebrook. Good afternoon, Helen.
Good afternoon, Bob.
Yeah, and over here on the right end, on his left, my right, we have none other than the world-famous publisher, Troy Torres.
I'm glad to be here, Bob.
Very good, yeah. And a former publisher on the other end, Lee Weber.
Hi, Bob.
Yeah. So I'd like our international radio listening audience to pay attention to the emblem on the shirts. Zoom in on Lou if you can, on Lee if you can, Jose, so that people can see that blue star on Lee's T-shirt. There you go. So it says, Bob gave me a blue star. How about that, huh?
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, so you guys have the only blue star T-shirts in the world right now. Yeah.
Oh, we are so privileged. I'm so honored.
Yeah.
Special. I feel special.
Well, you should. You should. So this is your opportunity to tell me how much you appreciate Tall Tales. I don't know. We only got about 13 more minutes.
Well, I'll start.
Yeah.
I tell everyone on our show
okay.
that I learn so much. Like I tune in so I can learn from Bob Klitzkie and Jose at times.
Right on there, yeah.
And sometimes, as I'm learning on your show, I realize that something that I've said or that I've thought was wrong, and I don't even look it up. I'm like, well, verified that I was wrong because Bob said so.
It's got to be right. Yeah. Nothing to see here. Bob said it's got to be right.
No, but truly, I love this show.
Okay, thanks, Troy. Yeah, I feel the same way about Candid News.
Thanks.
And you're the last man standing. I don't know if you had a chance to listen today, but what passes for newspapers nowadays? You know, I did an experiment the other day, and I threw a dead fish in the Daily News. The dead fish wouldn't even stay there. You can't even use it as a fish wrap anymore.
That's pretty bad.
So, Mom in the Middle, what can you tell me?
Oh, I have 3 very dedicated followers of Tall Tales in my car. When one time a week, I go up to Gigo. I don't go to your neighborhood. And the kids are in the car, and we usually go up between 4 and 5. So it's like, is Bob on? Yes, Bob's on. And then on Saturdays when we go up to Gigo, is Bob on? I'm like, no, Bob's not on Saturday, Monday through Friday. So they listen. They listen. So
if you don't like Saturdays and Sundays because there's no you may be a tailgater.
That's right.
Your turn, Lee.
My turn. Bob and I go back a long way. Tall Tales is it's truth on Guam, and it's probably the closest thing that you're going to get to accurate news coverage that's legitimate. You're not going to get it necessarily from newspapers. I think journalism's taken a horrible hit. I don't even call it journalism anymore.
Okay, well, let's talk about journalism. You know, I'll tell you what I expect from a journalist. And I'm not a journalist. When you tune into Tall Tales, you find out what I think about stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't break the news. I'm not trying to scoop anybody. I don't even make my own record. That's why I read from somebody else's stuff, because I don't make the record myself. I don't come in and say, this is what I found out. It's what somebody else found out. And I give you my take on it, my analysis. But to me, a real journalist is an extremely curious person, that if you told him 2 and 2 were 4, he'd dig in his pocket for his calculator just to make sure that that was correct. And if something didn't sound exactly right, he wouldn't let it go. He'd chase it down until he found out what the actual facts were. And when he did, he'd report the facts without fear or favor. He wouldn't have his own agenda. He wouldn't do the red rice, yellow or orange rice thing that I talk about so often. I just don't see that anymore. I don't see, most of all, I don't see the curiosity. So I'd be interested in your takes. Starting out with you, Helen.
Well, I am a journalist according to my degree.
Okay.
Which you can really wrap fish in. I haven't worked as a full-time journalist for a long time, but I have seen it since I graduated, and that was 40 years ago, that it's gone down and down. There's no curiosity. In my house, if I would see something and I react to it, we should have more information about that. My kids are like, why? Why would you want to stir up trouble? Why would you want, because we don't know what the truth is.
Mm-hmm.
We need to find out what the truth is. And I am sitting on stories that, because of time, I haven't done them. But there's one I'm going to do before I get off this island, Lord willing. So, but it's going to digging.
Now, you said what is this getting off the island?
Oh, my husband's going to retire.
Yeah.
So we are probably leaving this fall sometime.
Oh, this may be hard, but I don't know that I'll approve that.
Okay, well.
If the papers come across my desk, I may not sign them, Helen.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
We need you right here.
That's going to be a loss for Guam.
It really will. How long have you been on island?
I have lived on Guam longer than I've lived anywhere else in my life. I've been here I call this last time Guam V2, and it's been since 1999 that we've been back on island. Okay. I was here in the 80s. We were here from 81 to 84.
Okay.
So I've lived on Guam longer than I've lived anywhere else.
Wow. And we've been fortunate because of that. I think you and your husband's a weather guesser, right?
Oh, no, he doesn't get it wrong. There's a rule about weather in our house, Rule number 1, the weatherman is always right. Rule number 2, when the weatherman isn't right, referred to rule number 1.
Okay. I got it. All right. Troy, what can you tell me about the state of journalism? And you give us a little hint on your background, because you worked on the other side too. You've been in the government trying to create the news, right?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm not a journalist, and what we do is in journalism, we just sometimes we'll dig. Well, actually, many times we'll dig because we are curious, but we add our flair and we interject our opinions and we take sides. And so, I remember, speaking of when I was on the news making side, I was at the governor's office. Brett Kelman from the PDN, just a great reporter, great journalist. That guy is the reason that there were local convictions in the Blue House case, because he just kept going at it, and he was wondering, why isn't anyone investigating the police officers who on the stand in federal court said that they were doing this, that, and the other thing? Aren't these crimes? And he was at the governor's office every day because he couldn't get anything from the chief of police, and that led to action directly from the governor, telling the police chief, you better reopen this because this is wrong. And it was all because of Brett Kelman. I remember the PDN of old. You had your Bernadette Stearns, the investigative reporting that led to just so many things.
Yeah.
That's so much unraveling of corruption. You don't see that these days. You just don't see that that dogged journalism that says there is something wrong in our government, in our executive branch. Our legislative branch isn't doing anything. Things that should be getting into the courts aren't making it there because our attorney general is doing nothing. And so who else do the people have to rely on? It's supposed to be the news media.
But it's candid news now.
I think.
So you may not be a journalist, Troy, but you are a muckraker. That's what we know you as on Tall Tales. Troy the muckraker. Lee, I'll let you close.
Okay. It's like I said in a column a few weeks ago. If your mother tells you she loves you, check it out. That was a sign that I hung in the newsroom when I took over as publisher. That and what you did for me today was nice. What are you going to do for me tomorrow? And those were the two signs that hung in the newsroom the whole time I was publisher of the Daily News, which was about 24 years. I think that piece is missing, that and newspapers not having opinion pages. because newspapers should have an opinion. The publisher should have an opinion. The paper itself, we had weekly meetings, many of which you attended, prior to doing our Sunday opinion pieces, and we would invite the public in. There were one or two people that we asked not to come back because they became
and sometimes you'd have a dozen people there.
Oh yeah, we would, and we'd buy lunch for everybody.
The sandwiches were good.
The sandwiches, we had sandwiches, and people would come in, and they were lively discussions, and we learned a lot from the public about what they felt, what they thought, as compared to what we believed was the right and just thing to do when we wrote our opinion pieces.
And I always tried to phrase my position in such a manner that I would win over the editorial page editor. And if he took my side, I figured I won that one. That's Dwayne George. He was really good at what he did.
Yeah, he did. He was.
Yeah, he was. Dwayne did a good job. We had an editorial board. There were three of us that sat on it. And I can think of only one time in all those 24 years as publisher that I said, you can write that if you want, but leave a space for me to write my column. Because I disagreed with them that seriously. And they said, it's okay, we'll change it. I said, no, you don't have to, just leave me a space. And I was ready to take an opposing view in my own newspaper of my editorial board.
So you left the Daily News and went to Honolulu, the Honolulu Advertiser.
I did.
And you came back, retired, you came back here and you wrote a column for the Daily News for a while, and then all of a sudden you turned up at the Post. Is there anything you could tell us about that?
Well, let's just say we disagreed on something from an opinion standpoint, and I said, fine, I won't write for you anymore.
Okay.
And it was pretty much that simple. And I'll leave it at that.
I found out something last week that really kind of surprised me when we had the beginning of the Troy Torres point debates. Phil Leon Guerrero was introduced as the executive editor of the Post.
Yes, he took over Mindy's job.
Yeah, so that really surprised me because Phil's a smart guy. He and I were co-workers at another media outlet at one time. He's a smart guy, but he went from cub reporter to managing editor just like that. That was amazing.
Well, Phil's pretty bright, and he's savvy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the familiar names are all gone. Oya, Gaynor, and of course Mindy's gone.
And Heidi.
Heidi's
Is Oya gone as well?
Yes, she is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, I haven't gotten them.
And I thought they were really good. It's that time. Help me out here, guys. It's time for us all to say,
Let's go, Brandon.
Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Federal grand jury reportedly asking questions about the former president. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The Washington Post reporting the Justice Department is investigating former President Trump as part of a criminal probe into the attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. The Post reports grand jury witnesses have been asked about conversations they had with Mr. Trump or others in his inner circle on or about January 6th of last year. Attorney General Merrick Garland telling NBC News they make no distinction investigating a former president.
We will hold accountable anyone who was criminally responsible for attempting to interfere with the legitimate, lawful transfer of power from one administration to the next.
Former President Trump yesterday made his first appearance in Washington since Inauguration Day last year, telling a conference of the America First Institute.
I always say I ran the first time and I won. Then I ran a second time and I did much better. We got millions and millions more votes. And you know what? That's going to be a story for a long time. What a disgrace it was.
The former president did not say if he'd run again in 2024, but predicted a momentous Republican landslide in this year's midterm elections. Former Vice President Pence also spoke in Washington yesterday and told a conservative student conference he and his old boss don't disagree on the issues, but
I truly do believe that elections are about the future. And that it's absolutely essential at a time when so many Americans are hurting. So many families are struggling, that we don't give way to the temptation to look back.
Mr. Pence told the group American freedom and the American dream are under attack. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve Board concludes its two-day meeting today, likely with another hike in interest rates. Anticipating early morning Dow futures are trading about 160 points higher. America is listening to Fox News.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts ad-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Trey Gowdy, the Fox News Rundown, Will Kane, Brian Kilmeade, and so much more. Go to foxnewspodcasts.com for all the details. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day. Featuring